What we'll be looking at next is how we can even modify the interface of WordPress using our child theme. We're going to customize the interface of the backend portion of WordPress. Here, I'll show you how we can display a thumbnail of our featured image on our All Post page. I find this to be very helpful because it immediately allows me to identify which posts have a featured image, and I can see which image is being used without having to go into every post individually. If you recall, I have several of my posts that have featured images. Currently, if I want to look at the featured image or even know which post has a featured image, I would need to go into the post itself and check and see if a featured image exists. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify this area of WordPress so that we can create a new column which will display a thumbnail of our featured image. Let's go ahead and do this. You may already expect that we're going to need to add something to our functions file. So I'll go ahead and begin by making a comment. I'll just go ahead and create the code and then I'll break it down for you. This block of PHP is going to look a little bit different from what we've done previously. We're going to start off by using a filter hook. This function is going to modify the list of columns in the WordPress post section. We're going to be using Manage Posts column, which is a WordPress filter hook that allows modification of the admin post table columns. Then we're going to be creating an anonymous function. This will receive the current columns as an array. Next, what we need to do is we need to define where we want to insert our new column. So I'll be using move after equals title. This means that the new column will be added after the title column. You could change title to be one of the other columns, such as author or category or tags. And in that way, you can control where this new column will exist. Next, we're going to find the position of the reference column. Move after key is going to store the index position of a specific column inside of our columns array so that the featured image column can be inserted after it. WordPress is going to extract columns as an associative array, where keys are the column identifiers and the values are the column titles. We're going to use array keys, which will allow us to only extract the key of this array. And we're doing this by using array keys columns. This will return something like a title, author, date, categories, etc. Array search, move after, and then array keys column true allows us to find the position of the title column within the array. The move after key is going to store the index number of where the title is found. These next two lines of code are going to allow us to split the columns into two parts. An array slice, columns 0, move after key plus 1, gets everything up to and including the title column. This is now going to be stored inside of first columns. The next line of code does something similar, but it's going to get everything after the title column, and it will store that in a variable called last columns. The next step is where we add the featured image column. Array merge combines the arrays to form the final list of columns. So what we're doing is we're grabbing first column, and we're placing that before the new featured image column, which we're creating right here. This array is allowing us to add the new column with a name of featured image. Featured image is a translation function that allows for localization. Last column is going to create the columns that come after our new featured image column. At this point, the column will appear within the admin panel, but it's going to be empty. So then we need to fill it with content. This bit of code right here is going to allow us to display the featured image in the column. We're using the add action hook, which is going to run a function at a specific time inside of WordPress. The manage posts custom column is the action responsible for displaying content inside custom columns. We're using another anonymous function here, which is going to receive a parameter of column, which is the column that's currently being processed. Then we're using an if statement where we're going to see if the column being processed is featured image, and if so, we're going to display an image. The post thumbnail allows us to do this. This is a WordPress function that retrieves and displays the featured image for a current post. And then I've gone ahead and created an array, and this is specifying the width and the height of the image. This probably isn't going to be the right dimensions. I usually find it easier to adjust this with CSS, but I'm just going to place some content in here so that we can see how this works. At this point, our featured image column should be fully functional. So let's go ahead and save our functions file and take a look in the browser. I'll go ahead and I'll go to my all posts page. And as you can see, we now have our featured image showing on any of the posts where we've used a featured image. This looks okay at this screen size, but if my page gets a little bit more narrow, because these are a fixed width, I'm going to have a little bit of a problem. So I'll just open the inspector so that I can show you. Because our images are fixed width, they are always going to take up 300 pixels despite the actual width of the featured image column. So our featured image column is really only this wide. At this point, it's 178 pixels, but the image inside of this area is taking up the entire width. So what we need to do is we need to alter the way in which these images are displayed. And I usually find it easiest just to add some CSS so that I can have these display at 100%. If we look at the image, it's inside of a TD element. This area of WordPress is made up of a table, and this TD element has a class of featured image, column featured image, which is what we assigned when we created this in our functions file. So I will use that as a hook so that I can grab the images that are within this column. Let's go ahead and modify our CSS. I'm going to place the CSS in my admin color scheme. Upon reflection, this probably isn't the best name for this file because I'm doing other things, but at this point it holds all of my admin styles, so I'm just going to continue to use this. I'll make a quick comment here, and then we're going to use the selector of td.featuredImage, and then I'm just going to use image. And we're simply going to set the width to 100%. And let's set the height to auto. And actually, we can probably make this max width. That will ensure that the images never get larger than their largest size, which probably won't happen because I think they're pretty big, but I think this will work well. I'm going to save this, and let's check it out in the browser. If I refresh my page, you can see that now these images are fitting within the width of the TD in which they are housed. And obviously, if I change the size of my browser window, they will scale up or down. I really find this particular enhancement to be extremely helpful because a lot of times I like to use featured images, but I don't always use them on every single post. So having a column that shows what the featured images are is extremely useful, as I don't have to go into the actual post to figure out what featured image is being used. This way, if I decide I want to change an image, I can easily see what's being used and I can swap it out with something else, or just identify what's being used within the post. I love the fact that using a child theme, we're able to fully customize every aspect of WordPress. Not only can we control how it functions and works in the front end, but we can also customize the back end portion of WordPress. I hope you enjoy the various things that we've learned, and maybe you have some ideas for some other ways that you can customize this awesome application so that it works in the perfect way for whatever it is that you want to do.